There is nothing wrong with the planet. Nothing wrong with the planet. The planet is fine. The people are f***ed. Difference.
There will be an answer, let it be.
I know that George Carlin bit is pointed at environmentalism, but it could just as easily apply to the social breakdown we're seeing today. Because planet Earth is not just a material place with a material fate, it's a spiritual one with a spiritual fate. It's a classroom where we work our souls through different grades and lessons tailored to our particular needs, whether we want them or not. And when the lessons and trials of life become too heavy to handle, many of us think that this difficulty is the proof that our system is broken, and that we, or someone, ought to fix it. And if it can't be fixed, then we'd better plan an escape. About 3 years ago, a cousin of mine committed the ultimate act of resignation. For this video, I'll refer to him as Abel. Abel was a person I liked a lot and thought very highly of. He was an intelligent, unassuming, highly conscious, sensitive, and kind individual. The kind of person who effortlessly reveals their authentic character because they're the genuine article. These are rare people, and you know them when you meet them. This was a person I'd run into at family gatherings, but got to know better through some long phone calls over the years. He was someone I'd always planned on making more time to see, but I never got around to it. Before his decision, we had talked about a get-together to finally see each other outside of family functions. It never happened, and I regret that it didn't. On top of a certain global situation that made it hard to see people at the time, this was 2021, he had moved to the other side of the country to farm, and time, geography, and obligations never provided opportunity to see each other outside of weddings and funerals. Life had happened to both of us, and things weren't exactly getting easier. Though we didn't speak too frequently, when we did, they were big, personal marathon conversations. Our first long talk was 21 years ago, a couple of nights before my wedding. I invited him over, and we wound up talking all night about the only kind of things worth talking about for that length of time: culture, politics, philosophy, and how menacing the world had become only a few years into the new millennium. Neither of us had any idea just how much crazier things were going to get over the next 20 years. When I got the news of his decision, it was 2022, and had nearly been a year since we spoke. The last time we spoke on the phone was for 3 hours.
Yes, it's good living on the farm. Also good living on the farm.
Abel had moved from New York City to Washington State and talked about some challenges he was having developing and building on his land, but also passionately about the things he was growing and planting to grow: tubers, vegetables, etc. And how the climate and soil of the Pacific Northwest was perfect for some of the particular things he was interested in. He had a ton of work in front of him, but a ton of freedom too. I told him it sounded like a lot of wonderful hard work, the kind that rewards you for what it makes you, more than what it pays you. And I confessed a bit of friendly envy for the amount of knowledge and skills he'd acquired, particularly since leaving New York, where he had enjoyed living, until he didn't. Abel was also happy to share some good news. He'd met someone, a bright, mutually sensitive soul that he met at a party, and with whom things had immediately clicked. But he told me something that has stuck with me and haunted me since his decision. He said that he felt that he didn't deserve to be as happy as he was, with everything that was happening in the world. A few days later, he sent me a selfie of him and his significant other, standing cheek to cheek together on his land, both with the kind of synchronized smiles that didn't look like they were for the camera. So some of what follows is being kept intentionally vague. and I will not be responsible for any assumptions made based off the limited information that I'm offering. Out of respect to Abel, I will say that he had 2 caring married parents that I knew, and that he spoke favorably of, and that his past issues, as far as he disclosed, were not related to his relationship with either of them.
You must never assume, because when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me.
Today's message is not about Abel's life or mine, but on how everyone can better proceed in a world of people and things that take more than they give back, and how changing our perspective about the world we live in, and in my opinion, the role our planet actually serves, might help us forgive our trespassers, as well as ourselves. After listening to Abel candidly confess some of the challenges he faced growing up, I shared some specifics about my life that only those closest to me, or who have earned my trust, are allowed to know about. I offered these private details to him because he had been candid about some very personal things, and I felt comfortable enough to return the favor to someone who could understand what an abnormal childhood actually looks like. Still, after everything he shared, even reciprocity seemed insufficient, and I felt compelled to leave Abel something beyond my own reflective, empathetic counter story. So I offered him a viewpoint that I've been trying to keep for some time now. It ain't easy to do, but it's helped me move along in the world through the necessary suckiness of circumstances, which is the point of this video. Any long conversation talking honestly about the world we live in is bound to have some heaviness, and I wanted to lighten things up for Abel and myself. So I shared with him an observation that helped me change the way I see the world and gives me a small measure of peace and grace when I need it. It's not intended to solve any problems, and it's not advice. It's just another way to contextualize what's happening around us when we find ourselves mad or just disappointed with the world we're living in.
I stand upon my desk to remind myself that we must constantly look at things in a different way. See, the world looks very different from up here.
I wish it would have been enough to help Abel, but his issues were beyond the reach of advice, and we're ultimately responsible for the choices we make. If we choose to end our game, it's my strong suspicion that there's another one waiting for us down the road in time, complete with the same challenges we've yet to master. I told Abel about a quick solo trip I took shortly after college to return to my childhood home and school that I hadn't seen in about 10 years. Nothing special, just a drive of a few hours, and one that was well worth the price of an open Saturday. When you reach a certain age, you might get a nostalgic itch to go home again, even though you can't, and even if home had some bad memories attached to it.
Home is where the hatred is. Might not be such a bad idea if I never went home again.
Upon arrival, I parked across the street of my old house, trying not to look like the out-of-place visitor that I was. And from my car, I just stared at the house for a while. On top of the updated color, I noticed other changes here and there. No basketball hoop above the garage, no rusting metal swing set near the backyard, and other smaller details that confirmed that this place that was once my world now belonged to strangers. It was their world, and mine was somewhere else, miles and years away from where my memory had parked it. It's a strange, unsettling feeling, one that you simply have to experience to appreciate. Just a block north was the grade school of my childhood. It was so close I used to cut through our backyard neighbor's house to get there. Of course, on this day, I drove that block and parked in an empty visitor's lot. I walked the grounds for a bit. It was the same, with some changes to the playground equipment. Wood and metal jungle gyms were replaced by some sun-faded plastic things. Things that looked a lot less dangerous and fun than the ones I grew up with. But besides that, everything at this scene was similar. Except me, who was quite different. The memories I had of this place were made through the eyes of a skinny little kid who had since been doing his job of growing up, while the school was doing its own job of mainly staying the same. Perhaps you see where I'm going with this. I walked the sidewalk around the outside of the building, looking into some of the classrooms as I passed by. At the student entrance side of the building, I headed up its shallow cement stairs to the walkway in front of the kindergarten and first grade classrooms, all of which had full outside-facing windows with thick off-white vinyl privacy curtains. Stopping at a window, I peered through a partition into a kindergarten classroom and into my past. It was a room that had not yet been cleared out for the summer, and except for the missing teacher and kids, it was all still there, sufficiently lit by ambient natural light, an intact exhibit of a typical schoolroom, with little toys, drawings on the wall, and those tiny natural wood-colored laminate-top desks, with their corresponding wooden-backed metal chairs and their tiny circular swiveling metal feet. There was a storytime area, an open floor for kids to sit, Indian style, as we used to call it, along with cubbies filled with shelves and hooks and serving as a kindergarten alternative to lockers. And there were pictures of kids' faces on the wall with their first name below it, a generation of future adults growing up in a world very different than mine. As I scanned the room, transfixed by the distance between myself and my memory, I sensed a certain wisdom behind it, the process of life and learning, made appreciable from the passing of time. I was standing in a place, still very much the same, that had played a modest role in my modest development. While it's obvious to see this, it's quite something else to feel it. That this room and rooms like it, which had once sufficiently served me and so many kids so long ago, of course had nothing left for me. But here it stood, largely the same after all this time, now useless to me, but hardly useless, and still faithfully teaching the same kindergarten-type things that it was meant to teach. Which got me thinking about the larger world, and that perhaps my expectations of it were as short-sighted as anyone expecting this kindergarten classroom to be anything beyond itself. Had school been in session that day, imagine the absurdity of an adult storming in the middle of class and saying, "Are you kidding me? You guys are still playing with blocks? What's wrong with this place?" And of course the answer is there's nothing wrong with kindergarten, or first or 12th grade for that matter. Just like, maybe, in a way, there's nothing wrong with the planet, or society after all. Maybe we're ready to move up a grade, or planet. Or just some of us are. Who knows?
Is it so bad where you're from?
I thought so, Pop. I've been living at a dead run, and I was tired. And one day I knew I had to come back here. I had to stop and breathe, and close my eyes and smell and listen.
I guess we all want that.
And maybe some of us think we deserve an upgrade, because we're tired of the mess here. An attitude which, I'm afraid, by itself, won't change anything about humanity's upcoming school year. So if planet Earth is a spiritual classroom of sorts, and I believe it is, then it makes little sense to complain about the quality of coursework being done here, even if you're correct about it, and even if it feels good to vent for a minute or two. And I do understand the frustration. I feel it myself. Frustration with the world, with our so-called leaders, and with ourselves. So I can relate. Except I don't want to stay bitter. And I simply can't stay bitter when I realize that our world, messed up as it seems, is somehow functioning exactly as it's supposed to, and will impart the very pain, pressure, and knowledge we all need to transcend what we've created. Life does have a funny way of helping you out. That's a jagged little pill to swallow.
Ironic.
The idea that everything ultimately serves is a mindset, I think, can provide some relief to those who suspect that there's something self-sustaining in us, an immortal driver that remains even after the car breaks down.
There's not a minute to spare.
But I don't think this Earth as a classroom model can be of much utility to anyone with a nihilistic mindset, or anyone who thinks that earthly life is a one and done, followed by an everlasting nothing. But playing devil's advocate, and supposing nihilists are correct in their belief of nothing, if that's the case, then they literally have nothing to fear. Chew on that one for a sec.
You'll never come back again.
Oh, shut up, Ralph.
It's got a death curse.
So once again, here's our home, or better yet, classroom, for a while. And acts of love, hate, creation, and destruction are what happen here, for as long as they need to. This means there are a lot of problems, and yet, no problem here. Maybe certain problems arise within ourselves as self-inflicted negative mental experiences, born from our preferences, and it shows up when we expect the world to function as we'd like it to, instead of how it needs to, not just for ourselves, but for everyone else. And when we find ourselves in the classroom company of slower learners, we should humble ourselves and realize that there are faster learners too, and higher grades to attain for everyone. And that everyone is a work in progress and is where they belong right now. We all suck, relatively speaking. But maybe one day, and when that day comes, we might not think much to talk about it, because we won't need to. We will have simply enjoyed the trip for what it is and was, which was always nothing more or less than what it needed to be at the time, just like kindergarten. And there's a certain wisdom and beauty in that, if we choose to see it. A little drive I took some 25 years ago helped me see it, and it's been helping me ever since.
It was one of those days where it's a minute away from snowing. That's the day I realized that there was this entire life behind things that wanted me to know that there was no reason to be afraid. Video's a poor excuse, I know. But it helps me remember.
To early adopters and recent subscribers, as well as new visitors to this little channel that could, thank you for stopping by, and as always, thanks for listening.